Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the first webinar of 2026, and Happy New Year. We continue the 2025-2026 FCM Collective Series with today's session, where we will learn about new and powerful partnership models, lessons learned, and strategies for aligning municipal priorities with YMCA programs to achieve shared goals. My name is Evan Clark, and I'm the Manager of Partnerships and Sponsorship at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I'm pleased to welcome our presenting partners from YMCA Canada. As FCM moves forward with our commitment to reconciliation, I want to acknowledge that FCM's head office is located on the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. As an organization, FCM endeavors to unlearn colonial mindsets and practices, grow in knowledge, and adapt our ways of working. As we continue to build meaningful relationships, we recognize the historic and ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples and honor their leadership and partnership in shaping and strengthening communities across the country. I welcome you all to acknowledge the land you are joining us from today. Now, before I turn things over to the experts, I have a few housekeeping items to mention. L'interprétation simultanée est disponible pour notre session aujourd'hui. Pour accéder à l'audio en français, il faut simplement cliquer la petite icône du globe au bas de l'écran vers la droite et sélectionner le français. If you do not select a language, you will hear the live audio in English. Je vous donne quelques secondes pour faire le choix de langue. We will also be sharing slides in English and in French today, so please select the appropriate tab for the language of your choice at the top of your Zoom window. You can do so now. If you would like to ask a question, please do so using the Zoom Q&A feature. You'll find that at the bottom of your screen. We plan to leave time for questions towards the end of today's session, which I'll help facilitate by pulling questions from the QA pane. Finally, please note this session is being recorded and will be available on demand on the FCM website. Now I'll turn things over to our guests by introducing today's moderator, Kevin Muir. Kevin will introduce the remaining members of the panel. And I will note Kevin has volunteered to stand in for YMCA CEO Peter Dinsdale, who regrets that he is unable to participate today. Kevin is the Chief Operating Officer of YMCA Canada, the national office of the YMCA in Canada, where he is responsible to help realize the potential of the federated model to create meaningful and lasting impact in communities across the country. A collaborator, a consensus builder, a change agent, Kevin has more than 20 years of experience designing and executing powerful strategies in multiple sectors and industries, helping organizations achieve their unique purpose. Kevin holds the CPA and ICD-D designations. Over to you, Kevin.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Evan. Thanks everyone for joining the call and for having us here today. Our new strategic plan in the YMCA is called Communities That Shine. And today we're going to be discussing the impact that YMCAs have in communities all across the country, and specifically how we partner with municipalities in achieving that impact. We can go to the next slide. The YMCA in Canada is a federation of 37 independently incorporated charities, and we've got 4 of the 37 here today. And these charities deliver programs in more than 1,700 locations with 20,000 staff and 25,000 volunteers, serving 2 million people every single year. YMCAs also provide $12 million in financial assistance annually to ensure everyone can participate. And that's pretty cool because you may find yourself in a YMCA and you might be on the treadmill and you look to your left and you look to your right. And on one side of you see the mayor. On the other side of you see someone who's receiving financial assistance. Because at the YMCA, everyone belongs. Next slide. As we all know, there are growing issues within communities across Canada, including the rising cost of living, housing, isolation, chronic illness, mental health challenges. Next slide. We see that people are struggling. They're struggling to feel healthy, to feel valued, to feel connected, and to feel truly well. Only 4 in 10 Canadians feel a sense of connection and belonging to their community, and almost half of us feel lonely. Next slide. Our communities are truly in crisis. Next slide. So at the YMCA, I mentioned that we have a new strategic plan. Our mission is to ignite the potential in people and the potential of our communities so that everyone can shine. Some of the ways we do that include providing access to health, fitness, and aquatics, childcare, housing, and by delivering programs in smaller communities in Canada. You're going to hear about all of those today. First up, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Dorham. She's the president and CEO of the YMCA of Calgary. And Shannon's going to tell us about how they partner with their municipality on health, fitness, and aquatics. So over to you, Shannon.
Wonderful. Hello, bonjour. It's a privilege to be here today. I'm traditional territory of the peoples of Treaty 7 here in Southern Alberta. And I have the great privilege of leading a YMCA that's had a long-standing relationship with our municipality here in Calgary. And I'm very excited to share our successes and learnings and how it works. Next, please. So I'd like to say hello to any of our City of Calgary friends who are on the call today. We are actually celebrating this year 100 years of municipal partnership with the City of Calgary. On the left of your screen, how it started was actually what's called the Riverside YMCA. This is an old fire hall that the City of Calgary came to the YMCA to ask if we could turn it into a center for physical activity. So this is really the origin story of the YMCA in Calgary. And on the right-hand side, you can see the evolution and maturation of that relationship. Shane Holmes YMCA at Rocky Ridge. This is a 285,000 square foot facility in Northwest Calgary, which is one of the largest YMCAs in the world, just as a fun fact. And really then shows the evolution and the mutual trust, respect, and reciprocal benefit for Calgarians through this relationship. So let me explain to you how this looks in the Calgary context. We operate off of the City of Calgary 6 city-owned recreation facilities. Those are the squares on your screen there, and apologize if that's a little bit small for you. We also have an urban camp called Sandy Beach that we lease from the City of Calgary as well. That's an outdoor site. And then all the little triangles are on your screen are community-based sites. And we sort of call this a hub and spoke model where you notice a lot of those triangles are sort of in the center of the city, but a lot of them are also around our YMCAs. And that's really important because our YMCAs are also located fairly closely to high schools, junior high schools. And also of importance, almost all but one of our centers have a public library with them. And this is a really important design element. The model has evolved over time, but we do have 5 locations with libraries and with child care centers as well. I'd just like to add that the success of this partnership really is based on collaboration and a very shared idea of what the needs of the community are to how Kevin mentioned those needs changing. And we do consider ourselves a delivery partner on behalf of the city, helping the city to achieve its goals. So you notice the last line there about providing financial assistance, or what we would call the Fair Entry program in Calgary. We deliver that on behalf of the City of Calgary. So how does it work? This is a question I get quite consistently, and most simplistically, I would explain it by saying the City of Calgary, through its means, puts forward the upfront capital and handles the build. And so the city delivers the facility, turns it over to the YMCA to operate through its lifespan based on a set of terms and conditions. Those terms and conditions are set out in what are lease and operating agreements, and they are intentionally bifurcated. So there's 2 streams in those LOAs. The leasing side, which really explains the governance of the facility itself and how that facility is cared for. And then the operating side, which really speaks to how we deliver service for the community and what we aspire collectively for that to look like. These are long-term agreements. They are 25 years with a 25-year renewable. And what the YMCA brings to the table from the outset, typically in our case, is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So in the case of the Shane Holmes YMCA I showed you, that would have been about a $9 million commitment from the YMCA to lift that facility off the ground. And then we take on the long-term risk of operating and caring for the capital life cycle for that building, which means that we need to be able to generate enough fees through service to be able to fund those capital life cycle costs. We do have obligations around reporting. Those are quarterly, annual, and also deliver an annual plan to the City of Calgary. And there's a liaison that helps us do that. So Carolyn, if you're out there, hello. And then we also are required to have life cycle. So in our case, that looks like a 5-year building condition assessment that gets renewed and then built into a long-term 25-year financial plan. And the last thing I would say is that we're really lucky to have some incredible colleagues at the City of Calgary through the partnerships team and the recreation team and senior levels of administration that have been very supportive of this relationship. We work together hand in hand to identify community needs and be able to deliver on those. So it has been a really great success story in that way. Next slide. So I'll tell you why this relationship works both for the municipality. One, we would have a demonstrated track record. So the YMCA in Canada has a significant history. The YMCA in Calgary has a 125-year history. And our ability to leverage philanthropy, to leverage volunteerism, to leverage government grants makes us an efficient operator. We also have the benefit of being part of a federated model, means that we have significant commitments to things like child safety and protection. So being a part of that federation is a really important part of our story. And from a philanthropic perspective, we provide, as Kevin mentioned, assistance to those who can't afford, and we have a policy that we do not turn anyone away for inability to pay. And in 2024, that was worth $5.6 million in financial subsidy in the City of Calgary. And the last bit, which is a bit of an added benefit, and you never want to test these things, but in the case of an emergency, we are part of the Calgary Emergency Management Agency response system. So in our case in Calgary, we had the flood in 2013. We've had weather event days that have been very significant, the COVID pandemic, that we've been part of that ecosystem. So mutual benefit to the YMCA to deliver community service and to the municipality as well. Okay, so next slide here. This is really about why it matters. Kevin, you did a beautiful job setting us up here. We know that our communities are changing. We know that people are feeling more stressed, more disconnected. And the YMCA really does offer a solution to that in terms of engagement with the community, getting healthy and well, and also being a supporter and encourager of young people. We are a significant employer of young people and very much invest as a priority in the health and well-being of our young people, both as an employer, but also in terms of meeting their wellness needs, everything from physical activity to mental health as well. So some pretty important work and social outcomes there. Next slide. And I'll end by just offering you a snapshot of where this goes next. In Calgary, we are innovating with a brand new model where we're looking at a partnership opportunity that looks somewhat like a public-private partnership. We have a wonderful developer partner here in the city who's offered to donate the land, to contribute financially, and to also help us build a new YMCA and library. And so we're right in the middle stages of getting this work shovel ready. And what this will mean if you're a municipality is really a 25% ask, so 25 cents on the dollar versus 100 cents on the dollar to get this kind of infrastructure built with the YMCA as the fiscal agent. So we are coordinating asks at levels of government and also coordinating and building a capital stack. You'll see there's multiple pieces there that will contribute to bring a new center to life. We don't know of a scenario where this has been done in exactly this way. I know many you've had one similar in Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford, but we're pretty excited about where that goes. Okay, so that is all from me. Thank you very much. I now have the privilege of introducing my colleague Manny Figueiredo, the President CEO of the YMCA of Hamilton, Brantford, who's going to talk a little bit about chat. So Manny, I'll turn to you.
Thank you, Shannon. I have the privilege present to you from the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe. And in HBB, as we refer to ourselves, we work hard to honor our covenant, the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty. So thank you. You heard my colleagues speak about one part of the powerful part of the YMCA ecosystem. I'm privileged to speak about another part that we're in partnership with all levels of government, but so critical with municipalities. So we'll go to the next slide. A bit of history here. But before I do so, just to give you context of HBB and YMCA, I mean, we're the largest childcare provider across the country. Local context in Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford, we have over 180 locations. 100 of them are with the YMCA Canada Early Learning Childcare program that we work in partnership with municipalities. We have over 700 staff in the childcare space, and we serve almost 7,000 young people on an annual basis. So the history, prior to YMCA Canada Early Learning Childcare, there's been strong partnership with municipalities, and we know we're committed with municipalities around accessibility, and we pride ourselves in high quality childcare. This collaborative engagement, this municipalities have been responsive, and they have been responsive, continue to be responsive, even in sort of this new world with new funding formulas. But I'll move on to the next slide. So the new Canada-wide early learning childcare funding formula, we know it's provincially designed, and we thank municipalities around the complexity of administering it. So, and we know that there's some discretion that occurs around day-to-day delivery, but and there's some variability, as we locally, we're not the only YMCA association who works across many municipalities. So we see that variability in terms of implementation, and we know we're entering year 2 of this new funding formula, although in Ontario anyway, I'm speaking to, but Ys across Canada joined in 2022. And this shift from revenue replacement to cost recovery, we were excited about this new shift, but we're wondering whether provinces could leverage more the municipal knowledge, because you're frontline with providers like the Y in terms of what's working and what's not working. I'll speak a bit more about that later, because it has created some higher administrative workload, not just for the operators, but we also know for our municipal partners. Next slide. So what is working well? So shifting from revenue to replacement to cost-based recovery it is a good sign, it's working well, but it has increased complexity. The municipality collaboration, I know I'm emphasizing this with operators. The complexities is increasing. I guess I'm moving on. Some municipalities are providing more flexibility with timelines and reporting than others. So we appreciate that when there is some flexibility as we're understanding the new business rules. And there is a recognition that the YMCA program is a huge economic driver. It helps parents enter the workforce, especially single parents, which are predominantly women. And we know under the reality of affordability across the country, this is one thing we hear from our families that is so critical for them entering the workforce, but also a program that's actually letting them keep money in their pocket and to use with other areas that are more expensive in their lives. The YMCA also recognizes, it's working well, the critical role of early childhood educators. We better pay and working conditions. We hope that it doesn't stay there. There's still more we can do, but there's some recognition around the importance of this workforce. Next slide. So some of the challenges: inconsistent interpretation of provincial guidelines by different municipalities. And provincial rules may be consistent on paper, but when you're actually, the lived experience in front line is very different. And we are a multi-site operator. So with 100 locations, with 100 templates and 100 financial statements to try to meet the cycling, the assessments and the reconciliation of 100 locations is very different for YMCAs than it would be if you are a single site operator. And again, the last piece is, again, the differences in municipality capacity. We know that we have some great expertise in municipalities, and with changeover in staff municipalities, that people are coming in learning. So the relationships are important, but it also has created some challenges. Next slide. So some things around sustainability that we would recommend really around standardized provincial templates and minimum operating standards. We find examples that were given by my team in terms of funding flow schedules, reconciliation steps, evidence checklists, dispute escalation. At times, we as the Y are sharing with a best practice from one municipality to the other municipality, and it's well received. But these are things that we're seeing that would be very helpful. I won't read all the things for you, but I do want to highlight the last bullet I think is really important around refining the funding formula. What we're seeing here locally around three things. We see this as so important, but there are three things that we're struggling with to try to create a surplus so we can reinvest in capital, as we're finding we're in deficit in many locations. So if we can't balance the books, we're unable to reinvest back in some of our sites with some of the capital we need. Secondly, around ratios. So when the funding formula on paper might look great, for example, for toddlers, there's a 1-to-5 ratio, 3 staff, but we also have to honor the Employment Standards Act around break time, lunchtime, and we at times have to fund extra staff to make sure that proper breaks and supervision are being provided. And the last thing around is the complexity of young people. So around inclusion, we pride ourselves on inclusion, but at times we find it very difficult to meet some of the needs without the funding reflecting that young people need sometimes one-to-one support. And the next slide. Thank you. And I'm probably supposed to, like my colleague, introduce the next speaker, but I can't recall right now who is the next speaker, but there we go. Hannah Lapointe, who's the Vice President of Community Development from YMCA Greater Moncton. So I'll pass on to my colleague who will speak about another part of our ecosystem. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Manny. Hi, folks. Thrilled to be here. I'm here representing the YMCA of Greater Moncton. We're situated on the traditional unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, covered by the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. I'm stepping in today for my president and CEO, Zane Carrico, who sends his regrets due to all the East Coast weather that we've had lately. He's gotten storm stuck far away from home. So happy to step in and kind of share a little bit about you. To you about the incredible work that we've been doing surrounding homelessness intervention and housing, and how that we've collaborated with our municipality. So I'll start by sharing that our Reconnect Street Intervention Program, which is our primary outreach program, actually this year is celebrating 25 years of operations. And that program was kind of YMCA of Greater Moncton's first step into the world of helping people experiencing homelessness and housing. And it started because we were approached by all three levels of governments, really at the end of the day, because they felt like there was a growing population of people experiencing homelessness in Moncton. And this was in 2001. So I'm sure you can imagine, given the climate of the world we live in and of the country we live in now, that the numbers that were considered needed help with in 2001 are very different than what we're seeing now. I believe I've been told stories that it was about 5 people panhandling downtown. And now you'll see a little bit later about the number of people we serve on an annual basis. But really, in the early days, the municipal focus was on really addressing those signs of visible homelessness in our downtown core, and how it was impacting downtown businesses. And they approached us because we were uniquely positioned as a community-based service operator. Back in the day in 2001, we were still in a location that really is, our downtown location was very prime, right in the middle of kind of all the action. And so it was easy to get people, staff ready to go and help these individuals. Over the 25 years, we've continued to work with our municipalities. We do live in a tri-community area, so there are 3 different municipalities that make up the Greater Moncton, city of Greater Moncton. And we have worked with all 3 of them in different ways over the years. But the city of Moncton became our primary partner for our core outreach services. That has since then expanded into housing, and our municipal funding for daily outreach is ongoing. Next slide. So again, talk a little bit more about kind of the funding models, and how we really prioritized shared investment across all of our systems. And so currently what that looks like is we continue to operate our core outreach services. We operate on a 24/7 model, and we have funding from all three levels of government for those services. So we get funding from the city of Moncton, we get funding from the town of Riverview, which is another one of those tri-community areas, in order to serve the population over there, which is often overlooked when we're talking about homelessness in our city, as well as our newest kind of collaboration with municipalities is through the Kodiak Regional RCMP, which is funded by all three of the tri-community areas, and they are fully funding our YMCA Reconnect Alternative Dispatch program, which I'll touch a little bit more on after. But overall, we're talking approximately 925,000, closer to 1 mil, that between all of the municipalities and all of the entities kind of that come along with that we're working with on an annual basis to help kind of address homelessness and housing in the Greater Moncton area. Next slide. So what works well? Why has it been effective? We've really established very clear roles from the get-go. So our municipalities, we really are really focused on the funding aspect and the planning and making sure our systems are aligned across everything we're doing. We focus on our operations, relationships, daily presence, making sure people that are, not only in our downtown core, but even out in encampments, in the woods that kind of surround our cities are taken care of. And we have a long-term municipal commitment. So right now we're operating in a 5-year contract, but again, we've been involved for 25 years. And that consistency allows us to know that on a day-to-day, we're able to go out, my staff are able to go out boots on the ground, and help our most vulnerable populations get the things they need. We operate as an integrated system between all of our programs, and that includes our supportive housing programs, which again operate primarily funded by the provincial government. However, we do receive support from municipal as well. And in 2025, we served 1,412 unique individuals. That's combined experiencing homelessness and housing. And for unique services provided, we're well over 20,000 for last year. And the reason this works is because we do have trust. We have a large amount of trust with our municipal agencies. They give us a lot of freedom to adapt as needed. There's a lot of collaboration around, how is this program working? What do you need more from us for? And those kind of things. It really is more than just the funding. It's about having those key contacts at that municipal level for us that we can work with, and we can kind of go and say, this bylaw is having a negative impact on the population, and I think it might be creating more issues than you think it's helping, and being able to move forward from that. So for us, I'll often reach out to our general manager of community services. That's kind of her title here with our municipality. And we're able to collaborate together and really move forward. And then, so some of the challenges, I don't feel like I need to sit here and tell you all about the challenges of homelessness and housing in this country right now. I think we're all probably pretty well aware of the rising demand for housing, and affordable housing is only growing. Oftentimes the issues that we see facing as we try to engage in more of the housing approach, because where we've been primarily outreach services in the past, is limited housing availability as well as zoning complexities. So for example, at a local level, there's some struggles with zoning for transitional housing versus supportive housing, and what does that look like, and what are those differences? And oftentimes, when you kind of talk about the quote unquote homelessness issue, a lot of the conversation is around, the jurisdictional boundaries across municipal, provincial, and federal systems, and whose job is it to really step up and help manage these things and help make sure that we get housing that we can get people into. The other thing too that we do is we really act as the conduit for folks to enter housing. So our approach is document readiness and housing first. And so what that is we, through the funding provided by the municipality and through that partnership, we are able to work together to make sure that folks are prepared for housing no matter what agency it comes through across the city. Next slide. And what that means from sustainability. So we operate in an evolving partnership. Like I said, we have continued municipal investment in our outreach, our crisis response, and in the development of supportive or transitional housing. So currently we're working on a new collaboration where the municipality is taking on the role of land acquisition, preparation, and zoning, which again is one of our biggest challenges at the moment. Whereas ourselves will be doing program operations, Housing First Alliance supports, and operational funding is likely coming from the provincial government. So it's really about working together and focusing on long-term scalable solutions that can help more people in our area not only become housed, but sustain that housing. Next slide. So again, thanks for that. I think it's when we talk about the relationship between municipalities and housing and homelessness, it's really about stepping up. It's not a you problem or a them problem. It's an everyone situation. It's going to require an everyone solution. So for us, it's about getting all levels together when we can and having those hard conversations. But now I get to turn it over to Dr. James Chan, President and CEO of the YMCA of Sault Ste. Marie, to discuss how YMCAs partner in smaller communities.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Hannah. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is James Chan, and I want to just start by telling you that I've looked at the questions that are coming in, one from Stephanie from Whitehorse and another from David, who just recently attended the Roma conference, and he asked about rural, or both asked about rural or smaller communities. And I will tell you about Sault Ste. Marie, which is not necessarily a small community. I mean, technically, it's an agglomeration, and we are a city of about 75,000 people that's positioned right in the confluence of the Huron and Lake Superior in Canada. Very, very beautiful area. The overall catchment area is about 115,000 in Algoma region. So this presentation is not your typical description of a conventional partnership with a municipality. Rather, this is our Sault Ste. Marie YMCA story, and it's a success story of recovery. If you want to take a look at the next slide, well, I want to show you the deep, deep history that actually Shannon spoke to as well. These are old photographs taken from a museum here, and we have a 125-year history in this city alone. Ironically, the same, or coincidentally, the same number as in Calgary. And in Canada, I'd wanted to point out that the first YMCA is 175 years old, and that was in Montreal. So over on the left here, you see the St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, where the first meeting was held in the last turn of the century. And on the right, you see the incorporated Sault Ste. Marie Y, which was incorporated in 1901. And that was a very monumental piece. You can see the history is very deep in those sort of cowboy days. Also, if you take a look at some more pictures on the next slide, you'll see that the first building was called the Sioux Athletic Club. And that building ran, sorry, one slide back, please, if you don't mind. That building was on the left there, ran for 50 years and was called the Sioux Athletic Club. And on the right is the entranceway. So very, very interesting if you're a historian and want to take a look at the next slide to take a look at all of the different types of activities that went on there. And you'll see from the center of the slide there, the basketball team were I think champions in 1929. And if you look around the circle there, you see people with all kinds of athletic skill, starting in the left-hand quadrant at the bottom there. I think he must be on a trampoline. The top picture on the left, I think, is a women's basketball team. We also put on shows back in the day. Those two right-hand pictures are more like the 40s and 50s, I believe. So I just wanted to show you like how deep this organization is in this community because it matters, and I'll reveal how much it matters a little later on. In the next slide, you'll see the current building we have, and it was built in 1965. On the left, it was its inauguration. So our building is 60 years old, and on the right, you see the picture of how it looks today. So moving on then, you'll see some of the challenges we faced. If you don't mind moving to the next slide. This is not my slide, but go back one, Karina, please. Okay, so that's been a different view. Sorry, I mistook my slide. There was threat of insolvency in around April 2024. Our organization almost closed our doors, almost closed our doors. And that was a very unfortunate period for our YMCA. And some of the contributing factors to that included COVID-19. I'm sure a lot of people, know what that means when you have to close the doors to a place that people have to come to experience the services, like going to the gym, for example. We also had an aging infrastructure that needed some upgrades, some major upgrades. And of course, there are economic challenges. We are a steel town here. And if you follow the news, we've been in the news recently regarding some of the tariffs that we're deeply affected by. And so these are the kinds of struggles that we faced. And because of that, we faced almost closure. So on the next slide, you'll see what was done about all of this. And this is titled Turnaround because it was an enormous turnaround. What took place here was that a campaign was raised. It was called Save the Y. And it was highly publicized in the local news media called Sioux Today, operated by a company called Village Media, which is a company that operates a number of online news websites throughout Ontario and the world. And they were really behind us. All of our history is documented on the Sioux Today website if you care to take a look. And you'll see here all around the circle, people are getting their backs into it because they don't want our Y to close. It would leave a great gap in our community. The people that have been coming to the YMCA have been coming for generations, and they were not about to let it close and stand by as bystanders. Rather, they created this campaign, and in the next slide, you'll see what worked. Now, what was really important was that the city created a working group. The municipality had a working group, and it was led by our mayor and other city officials, and they explored the potential for continued services. If we closed, the pitch was we wouldn't be able to replace this nearly, certainly quickly, and that will leave a huge gap in terms of, things like learning to swim and having a place for our community, like the YMCA, which is a cornerstone of our community. So a funding model was pitched, and the main facility debt load was managed. The framework I'm talking about was presented to the city council, whereby they would provide up to about $500,000, and another $500,000 would be provided through government grant funding. And that was to address some of these major upgrades I spoke about earlier that were needed, things like HVACs and boilers and such, roof repairs. And then what happened was a philanthropist came forward and purchased our building. That solved the debt problem. And also the city, really supported us in terms of backstopping our rent for a 10-year agreement. And in essence, they became the co-signer on our arrangement, and we became a tenant. And so the municipality continues to provide that ongoing support. But the thing I wanted to mention about that campaign is that during those moments when there was all of this press, there was an open mic, and people readily came up and told their why story about why they could not stand by and how much and watch us close and how much it meant to them. And that is a testament of the difference I have been told that exists here in terms of how much the citizenry actually values our services. And there's a lot of services that we provide. On the next slide, you'll see how we actually rebounded and that we came up to a very healthy number of members. And finally, I want to talk about some future directions here, just to say that there is a strong membership base now. We are innovating in all kinds of ways in terms of programming. We have renewed partnerships, not only locally, but also with the Federation. And that, I believe, is the great benefit of the YMCA, because all of my colleagues that you heard from, I've met personally and, continue to learn from and benefit from. They're just, the whole organization is just so well grounded and equipped to provide excellent services, and that I think is unmatched in our country. So we are also looking for new facility options. We're working with our municipality and are very grateful that our municipality is behind us 100%. And tonight is our AGM. We're going to be welcoming a lot of people to come and hear our recovery story and our transformation to the future. So that's it. I'm going to turn it back to Kevin Muir for the next step.
Great. Well, thank you, Shannon, Manny, Hannah, and James, for telling us a bit about your YMCAs. Just going to look at some of the numbers before we wrap up here. The work you just heard about is really just a snapshot of what's happening in communities all across our country. 440,000 people are physically active and feel mentally well through the YMCA Health, Fitness, and Aquatics. 60,000 children are off to a healthy start with YMCA childcare. We're the largest not-for-profit provider of childcare in the country, giving families peace of mind while they work. 17,000 people found a safe and affordable place to call home through the YMCA housing services. 131,000 newcomers were welcomed and set up for success in their new country by YMCA Immigrant Services. 92,000 job seekers were given the supports they need to find meaningful work through YMCA Employment Services. We could not have achieved this without the support of our municipal partners. That's simply the way it is. We're looking for more partners to do this vital work, not just in program delivery, but actually in helping us keep these issues highlighted on the policy agenda for the provincial and federal governments. So if you're interested in exploring a partnership with the YMCA and how that can help your community shine, encourage you to reach out to Jen Turner, who's on the call here, and she'll connect you with your local YMCA. So that's what we've got. Back to you, Evan.
Thanks so much. We'll just give our production team a second to highlight each of the panelists, and I'll just say thank you to each of our presenters. I am starting to see some questions flood into the QA pane, so thank you folks for that. If you do have a question in mind and you want to ask it, now would be the time. So you can click that pane at the bottom of your screen, type in your question, and we'll do our best to get to it. I do just want to go back quickly to the questions from Stephanie and David, some of our, just representing some of our smaller and rural communities, northern remote communities. And I just have a question. I think maybe Kevin, you might be the best person to address this to, though I open it up to the panel. And considering the broad spectrum of FCM's membership, can you perhaps give us some examples of other successful YMCA partnership models, particularly those for small, rural, northern, or remote communities? And what works when you don't have the resources for like a purpose-built center?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I mentioned that partnerships are necessary. I would say that wasn't always the case in the YMCA. I think, if you go back 20 years, the YMCA would probably have been able to do more on our own. I think the municipalities have always been very supportive in doing things like providing the land for one of our membership centers or centers of community. We'd get some support from the provincial and federal government. Then we would do a capital campaign, so through philanthropy, and sort of this group would raise the funds in order to build the center. But then the YMCA would be pretty much on their own to operate. And that's not a financial reality that is working out to the same extent anymore. I would say less and less we're building our own centers and not needing that kind of support. So it's really that capital and ongoing operating support that is really essential. And then in turn, we deliver the impact. We are very, very good at what we do. We deliver great impact at a really affordable cost. And I think there's so many examples of that. The other thing that I would say is that it's not one size fits all. So really these centers of community are designed to be responsive to the needs of community. So they don't all look the same. Each one has its own uniqueness. And the agreements and the partnerships that we form with municipalities also don't look the same. I was in a YMCA in a community where we partnered with the city in two different buildings, and the two partnerships look very different. It's like, what does this partnership need to look like? With respect to the smaller communities, rural communities, we've gotten really good at operating YMCAs over large geographies. And so some examples, the YMCA of Northern Alberta, although based in Edmonton, they go from Red Deer all the way to Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo. The YMCA of British Columbia, it's based in Vancouver, but have programming all over the province, right up into northern BC. I think about the YMCA of Newfoundland and Labrador, based in St. John's. Again, programming from as far south as Marystown, all the way up to Happy Valley, Goose Bay in Labrador, where the only real way of accessing is by plane. So we're good at this. I think we've used technology to our advantage to be able to do this. We make sure that we've got a face in the community and representation in the small communities so that people really see it as their YMCA. We've had YMCAs amalgamate into larger Ys, and the local community doesn't even really know that's happened. It really still feels like their hometown YMCA. Yes, we can get very creative. We've done centers of community, 30,000 square feet in municipalities of 15,000 people. And the operating model works, but that's not the only way we show up. There's ways that we can deliver programming without having the bricks and mortar, and we're trying to be more innovative in that regard. We really want to be able to grow our impact and be able to access every corner of the country.
Excellent. Some of the questions are quick follow-ons here, and there's questions that maybe here you can answer very quickly. And the one that keeps recurring in the pane here is, what is the smallest population that could support a YMCA, or that a YMCA would support? So I don't know if you could shed any light on that.
Yeah, the model that I'm referring to, we would have a larger member association that would be extending its reach over a large area. So while the association services might be located in a city like Edmonton, we've got programming in communities all around the municipality. So we're not really issuing new YMCA charters anymore to small communities. What we're doing is growing by having our existing YMCAs extending their reach. So while we have 37 member associations, imagine that we're covering most of the country. The only province that we're not in is Prince Edward Island at this point. We are not in the territories, but I think, if there's a desire and someone wants us to talk to them and explore the opportunities, we'd certainly be happy to do that.
Excellent. Would any of the panelists have had any experience with that? Perhaps Dr. Chan, maybe you've served a smaller satellite community in this way?
No, I'm relatively new here. I would turn to my other colleagues to maybe answer that question.
So, man, you're in Hamilton, Burlington, Brantford, fairly large area. It may just be those three municipalities, but yeah, could you speak a bit to what it's like to be sort of delivering programs and services over multi-municipalities in a larger area?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you started with the notion that the local autonomy is still there. So although we're in Brantford, we're also in Brant County. So we provide services sometimes that are under the bricks and mortars of our partners. So we have obviously childcare is an example where a YMCA could have the part of their ecosystem not have a center or health and fitness, but yet provide childcare in an area that is remote, and we would go there. We also work in other partners to provide in the healthcare system where we are actually providing program for our youth newcomers, where we don't have a youth newcomers center, but we're providing support in a food program for parents who are coming in to a remote area because their children's in a hospital, but we actually are part of a cooking program. And so our programs have a reach, even with our programs with police services, even in the Brant County. So there's reach out that we do where we actually sometimes take our programs and then go out and ask, where's that community space that we can actually provide that service? An example as well is our programs in Six Nations and Mississaugas of the Credit, where we're working and offering a Beyond the Bell before and after school program on the reserves in their federal schools. Although they have a rec center there, we're partnering with them in the spaces that they have. So there are examples in Brant County where we go to them without having a major center in those communities.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Shannon, I've got a question from Adam with respect to your funding model, and they're wondering if the City of Calgary provides operating funds for your facilities in addition to the upfront capital for the building construction.
I don't know if you can hear that. Our fire alarm just went off for the second time in the last 15 minutes. The short answer is no. We don't receive any funding, but I'd be happy to follow up. I got to
Sure.
run.
Okay. Stay safe. Great. I will jump then to Hannah. And Hannah, just a quick question for you. And given the rising complexity and limited housing supply, what should municipalities prioritize in terms of zoning, land, funding design that you think would most accelerate long-term scalable solutions?
Yeah, it's a big question. I think the idea is barrier reduction, right? And I think if we want to set people up for success in a long-term capacity, get people who were chronically unhoused off the streets and keep them off the streets, the reality is you can't just throw them into an apartment and say, be better, right? That doesn't work. They need to be set up for success, and they need to be put in spaces and in units that work for them. So I would say from a municipality perspective, I would really encourage looking at your zoning, seeing what kind of property builds you allow. Are they inclusive and are they sustainable for people who perhaps need a little bit more support, as well as are you building facilities that are easily maintained? And easy to provide services out of. Because oftentimes, when we're talking about our highest acuity individuals, you can't, again, generally speaking, they need support on site. And so facilities need to be built with that in mind. So I'd really encourage municipalities when go and find a partner who is the kind of expert in the field in your area, which for a lot of municipalities, the Ys are doing this in different areas across the country. Make sure you're talking to them and make sure you're making the ability to build accessible.
Excellent. I'm seeing this question recur as well, and it sort of gets back to the invitation to connect with Jen Turner, who is here monitoring the chat. Maybe Jen, you can drop your email address in the chat, and folks can reach out to you before or afterwards. But this would be a question, I think, for the panel: how to get started with a new YMCA in either a small community or a community that's not currently served by your services or centers. And in the case where you need to reach out to a new center, we've got a question here from Denise from Rocky Mountain House in Alberta. How do you get started with one of those larger centers?
Yeah, so I can take that. And just to give a little bit more of an idea about our structure. So I mentioned that we're 37 independently organized charities, but with a common set of bylaws. And YMCA Canada was formed actually after the first YMCAs came in Canada to be the national office. So we are not the head office, we're the national office. So we're here to support and enable our associations. So Jen works at the national office, as do I. So if you reach out to us, then we can sort of have a look at where you are and then put you in touch with the most appropriate YMCA to start the conversation. It's not always necessarily going to be just one. We don't have rigid boundaries or borders. It would be more about who's best positioned to help really meet the need in community and what is that impact you're looking for. So that would be the way to go about it is reach out to us, and then we will put you in touch with at least one of our member associations to begin that conversation.
Awesome. Dr. Chan, I just want to follow up on your presentation. So you told us the story of how you brought the YMCA and Sault Ste. Marie back from the brink. Looking ahead, what do you see as the most important next steps to ensure long-term sustainability and continued impact for the YMCA in that community?
Thanks a lot, Evan. Thank you for the question. And to be clear, it wasn't me, it was
Mhm.
us. It was the whole community coming together and seeing a gap, and the community spoke, and the municipality responding with great support. And that I think is, as I said, quite unique and maybe not that usual, for the community to be that loud and proud and want something so desperately to succeed. And we are succeeding. And this is a success story. And where we're headed now is to continue to build our programs, to start new programs. We've got all kinds of new things starting out all the time. Our new schedule is about to be released, coming up pretty quickly. And we are also looking for a new, building, essentially partnering with our municipality and other different kinds of scenarios we're currently looking at. Without getting into too much detail, I have to tell you that our building is strong, right? We've just done all those major renos and upgrades. However, it's not going to last forever. And we do want a fresh look. That is needing, to be done so that we maintain the brand, the pride, and the modern look and feel that is the YMCA, so we can continue on that long and rich history that is part of the fabric of our country.
Love that. Kind of in the same vein, Kevin, getting back to your presentation, and thinking about the importance of national unity. You mentioned in your opening remarks that 4 in 10 Canadians feel a sense of belonging. Only 4 in 10 Canadians really feel a sense of belonging, say. So what do you think is the most important action that you want municipal partners to take to measurably improve that feeling of social isolation?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I think would be the idea of creating these third spaces, so not work, not home, that people can go to and be together in community. So YMCAs create these centers of community. We often think of health, fitness, and aquatics, but you'll see all kinds of things in there. You'll see childcare, you'll see employment, newcomer services, you'll see municipal libraries, arenas. So what does the municipality need and how do we get folks to come together? And I don't know, I talked about being on a treadmill, but it's having a coffee after the treadmill with 5 or 6 other people and just getting out and not being on your own. I think about my dad. My dad's 82 years old. We don't have a YMCA in our community. I saw someone talk about Vancouver Island. I'm from Vancouver Island, but we do have a Y in Vancouver Island, but not in my community. And I think my dad would really benefit from that, to go, sure, and exercise, but also to be with other people. And we need help, not just in building these facilities, but also in identifying what the need is. We often partner with other not-for-profits in delivering. So, we're not in the library business, or there's other aspects of delivery that we wouldn't be part of. The city can help convene those groups, and then often some kind of partnership in operations. That to me, I think, is the number one opportunity we have right now.
I love that. It's a great sentiment to end on. Before we wrap, folks, I just want to say a big thank you to Kevin, Shannon, Manny, Dr. Chan for this deep dive into community partnerships with YMCA. And I also want to thank YMCA Canada for its support of today's discussion. As mentioned earlier, a recording of today's conversation will be posted to FCM in the coming days. We'll also be sending the presentation slides in an email to all registrants when we publish the video. And any additional links or resources mentioned today. So please feel free to share that link with your colleagues once it's live. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, our next FCM Collective webinar will take place on February 11th. That one is entitled Patriotic Purchases: What a National Buy Canadian Policy Means for Local Procurement. Thanks very, very much for your attendance today, folks. Be well.